Bayhawks working the ball around. Send it in the middle for Danowski, who buries it. Lyle Thompson found Danowski right to the left of the net. And he scores with 47 seconds left.
Well, Coach, we last spoke to you after that win over Rochester holiday weekend, big party atmosphere in the background. How have you observed what's going on with this team the last few weeks, the lows in terms of the loss, and then obviously this exciting weekend this group just had?
Well, we had said all along, we didn't think it was a talent problem. We thought it was an assimilation problem. And once you get these guys together for playing together for 4 or 5 games, then you'll be able to judge whether that was true. And I think it is true. I think what you're seeing Lyle Thompson do to the offense, and Isaiah Davis-Allen as the shorty, and quite honestly, what Ben Williams did on Saturday night was something that, you know, we really needed. And for a guy to take on a first-round draft pick and dominate faceoffs is the way he did it, you know, our younger players are making great contributions right now and solidifying our older players.
Abbott in the middle to Burns, shot, score! That was impressive. Beautiful touch passing by the Bayhawks, and Byrne caught it and kind of threw a backward shot that beat Gittleman, who didn't look like he saw it coming.
It's always full of risk. Do you feel like you took a calculated risk when you thought about how you were going to put together this roster, and as you mentioned, it being more of an assimilation situation as opposed to a talent problem, but you're going to assimilate over the course of the year? It seems to, at least at the moment, have panned out, which is great for everybody, but I'm curious, in moments when it didn't look good, was there, man, this may have been a bit risky on my part?
No, because we didn't really have any other options. You know, like we traded pick 8 for Lyle Thompson. You know, and the only question was if Lyle Thompson was motivated, he'd be better than any pick 8 in the league. Now we wouldn't have got pick 8 because they moved the draft back. If normally the draft is in January, pick 8 would have had a chance to play early in the year. But with the draft being held of Final Four weekend, those guys missed games too. So that really wasn't a big gamble. The real big gamble is would Lyle show, and would he be invested in our team, which he has been. He's invested in our players. He's invested in our coaches, and that one there, I think we'll go back on, along with the Miles Jones trade, is that we got 2 of the best players in the world that our fans get to see every day, and they help us win games.
Beyond Lyle being a good person and a great lacrosse player, why do you think it is that he's been able to come into this situation, which is unique? I mean, he plays indoor for most of the year. I'll admit, I'm surprised at how motivated, how healthy he is, how consistent he's been. What do you think it is about this environment, and obviously him as a player, that's allowed that to happen?
Well, I think we told him right from the beginning that he was wanted. We wound up signing him to a 5-year contract. We maxed out his salary, which we didn't have to do after this year. You know, he'll max out for the next 5 years. And that told him right from the beginning that we meant business. And I think the way our organization treats players, you know, when he shows up, he's not taking a cab to a game. He's got a car service picking him up, and we do team meals, and a lot of other teams don't do that. And I think that he has enjoyed the professionalism, and he's enjoyed the way he's been treated by our coaches, and the way he's been treated by our team.
Flipping the side of the ball, to me the defense the last few weeks has been as interesting as anything, because you always had quality players, but as a group there seemed to be at times some disjointed play. Nico has been at the heart of what has been a resurgence on that end. And I want to go back to bringing Nico in when you had Brian. I mean, it was a situation where he was a great goaltender. It's tough to play goalie in this league, but he was going to be a backup. And to see where he is now at the most important time of the year for this group and this organization, what do you think it is about right now for Nico that's been so special?
Well, Nico was on the practice squad of Florida, I think, originally, and we claimed him. We knew him and Brian had worked together as a starter and a backup before. He was local, Philadelphia, so he can get down here to practice and everything. So he checked all the boxes there. He's totally invested in what he's doing. You know, he's a fiery competitor, and he's a guy that thinks he should play every minute of every game. And Brian Phipps was one that was confident enough that to allow him to have that, that feeling and not fight him on it. Saying all that is that, you look at us, at times, disjointed play is probably accurate, but overall, we were only saving 44 and 42% of our shots. So we weren't stealing any, and we weren't really saving any. So it's hard to really judge that if we got 50 or 55% or what happened, we were probably over 60 Saturday night, how many goals we'd give up. So, that was the one area. I thought there was a couple areas that if we improved, you'd see our team really go in the right direction. And one of them was saves and the other one's face-offs. And right now we're about 50%, and we'll take that. And if we can get 60% in the goal, then I think you're going to see a big improvement defensively.
Did you ever have a conversation with Nico, or did somebody in the organization, once he became part of the Bayhawk family, because physically he looks different? I mean, he has clearly lost weight. He's quick as I've ever seen him in cage. So to your point, the commitment has been there, even though maybe the playing time hasn't.
Yeah, he lost a fourth grader, I think, and he. Nico did it on his own. That's the way he is. He challenges himself. He plays mind games with himself. Him and Brian Doherty worked together as coaches at a college, and they both went on this diet and everything like that. And I think he sees the difference in his play when he's lighter and quicker and in better shape. So that's a kudos to him. We didn't have to talk about it. It's something he did on his own.
Another personnel move that I don't think any of us really foresaw. We knew about the draft picks and the influx of rookies, but Brian Ferrill. Bringing him back into the fold. I saw him warming up goalies one week, and I thought he was just here because he's buddies with everybody. But these last two games, he has been as important as anybody on both sides. He's done a nice job as a defender, but as we all know about Brian, the ability to make plays in transition as well. Take us through that process of Brian going from being the high school coach up the road to being now an important cog to this group.
Well, when we talked to Brian, we told him that we would like to have him as part of our organization, and he made a deal with Boys Latin that he wouldn't play until the end of the season. So our first step was, he started getting himself in shape during the lacrosse season, lost a bunch of weight there, and then when he came in here, we picked him up on the practice squad to get him to come to practice. And he, like you said, and when he came on the practice squad, both goalies wanted to be warmed up by him. So he made a contribution there off the field. And then we've had some military obligations for two of our defensemen that we're not able to overcome. And Brian had an opportunity to play. And coaching Brian, he's probably one of the most competitive kids I've ever been around. I can still remember him in a weight room in a contest with Will Yateman at the time, who was a football guy. Will Yateman went first, and Brian Ferrill did all he could to beat him by one before he collapsed on the floor, and that's the kind of player Brian is. Our coach loves Brian Ferrill, respects him, knows him as a player in the league and as a competitor, and so it was a good fit because our coach was very comfortable with who Brian was, and I was very comfortable.
Buries it in the back of the cage. That was beautiful transition lacrosse right there.
The other aspect to the past few weeks and specific to your position with this team is that the management of the roster when you have the Thursday-Saturday game. If you could, take us behind the scenes and how you and Brian obviously as well, but came together with a plan that maybe you'll have to employ again here in the coming weeks when you play Denver on the road, which is a challenge on Saturday, and then have the quick turnaround for Thursday. This has to be one of your more challenging but also exciting times as a roster management guy.
Well, first of all, the coach determines who plays. Mm-hmm. And so we communicate, but it's his final decision on who he wants on the roster and who he wants to play. So I just try to get him what he wants so he has the most available personnel to make the decisions of who he needs in each game. And so it's a constant thing that goes on day in and day out during a week. We're trying to find the right mix of some days you dress 5 poles, other days you consider dressing 6, some days you dress 4 shorties, some days you dress 3. And I think that we're in a kind of a transitional phase right now that we have a couple middies that are starting to play pretty well. And so coach will have that decision whether he dresses 5 or 6 or 4 offensive middies, because we can throw some of those guys out there young enough to go a few more times. But roster management, we kind of work together to get him what he needs so he can put out the best product on the field, give us the best chance to win.
Whether you're talking about a 53 in the NFL or 19-man in the MLL, versatility is extremely valuable. But it seems to be, and probably because I've seen more of you guys play than anybody, but that you guys value it even higher. Think about a player like CJ, then even a guy like Nick Manis, who grabbed the pole on Thursday during man down. When you're looking at kids, whether it be college or across the league, how big of a factor is that for you in deciding whether they're a part of your organization and then whether they're a guy that you're going to say to Brian, hey, we should probably have him on the 19-man?
Well, I think versatility is a very important thing in this draft because you only have 19 players and 2 are goalies who can't play another position. So when you're building a roster, you'd like to have a midi that if an attackman got hurt, you could move him down to play attack. You'd like to have a shorty who could play offensive midi if you get in trouble and move him down. You'd like to have a pole who could move down to play close in case somebody gets hurt. So having Nick Manis and Dan Groot could also do it on our roster. They have the ability to pick up a pole and play man down or pick up a pole to give a guy a rest. So versatility was an important part of our draft. We drafted Colin Heacock. Colin Heacock played attack at the end, but played midfield, so he's playing midfield for us. Jake Vaccaro was an attackman at Princeton, a shorty at Princeton, and a midi and an attackman at Villanova. He had versatility. So those guys that we looked to draft, we were looking for versatility, and that's what Nick Manis gave us. Started at some scrimmages with a long pole for Maryland at the beginning of the year, played shorty, could give a guy a break, and so those kind of players we definitely look to put on our roster.
There's 2 games to play, and those are most important, especially starting Saturday in Denver. But for what this group and how they've come together and how unique it's been, how special would it be for you to see this team make it back to the postseason and bring this organization back to where most of us that have watched and covered and enjoyed this league for a number of years kind of expect you to be?
Well, I mean, everybody expects to be in the playoffs. For me, watching from where I watch from, I just want to see us play as well as we can. And whatever the result is, we can live with it. If we play with great enthusiasm, we play with great effort, we care about each other, we're smart and follow the coach's game plan. To me, the rest of it will take care of it. If we're not good enough to beat Denver and we play that way, I can live with that. But we're building towards the future. A year ago, Coach Reese and I looked at this thing. It was going to take 3 years to get there. Yeah. Our roster was old. It was depleted. We didn't have a lot of good young players in. And to be able to kind of change the roster and now have a group of young athletic kids and plenty of kids can different suited games. Aponte can play attacker midi. Heacock. For Carol, we talked about it. It's exciting for us because I really think that this year it could, if we put it all together, the time could be now to be successful, not just make the playoffs, but win some games in the playoffs and win a title. So it just depends. We just got to play our best lacrosse at the end of the year. We hope we're building towards that, and the guys are giving us their best effort, and it's exciting to watch.
And more so, because you made me think of something, because I've obviously watched you guys since you took over here in the variety of roles you've had. That seems to be that's a new outlook for you as opposed to the years of bringing in all the high-priced, if you kind of describe it that way, the Spalinas and the Polancos, and bringing almost creating these super teams of 30 to 40-year-olds. Now it's like I'm all about the draft and the young talent. What do you think created that switch, or was it just time and situation?
Well, this situation, once you get old, it's hard to get young. And if you trade your draft picks, you'll never get young. Mm-hmm. And so we thought we made a calculated gamble, Brian and I did, that this draft would be one that we really could get better in. And so we made some trades at the end of last year, some older players. Got a pick 11 for one of the guys, got pick 19 for another guy, that we thought we could build this team up for this season right now with the draft. And we gambled and we were right. Because I think, and it's just not us, I think this class is participating and dominating throughout the league. So I also think next year's first round is going to be very, very good. So we want to try to get a hold of our first round and keep that one, and maybe try to get another one, because there's 7 or 8 guys that I think are outstanding players. So I think that once you get old, there's only one way to do it, and that's you got to get young again. And the only way to get young is through draft picks, and that was the way we did it.
Jones lets a laser go and buries it. Wow, that was a great move by Miles Jones. You can see why. He is one of the best scorers in the league right there. Jones' last goal, and it was a nice one. Look at this move using his size to get right past Jeff Reynolds and puts an absolute laser right past Gittleman.